Why does everybody laugh when I say that? Okay, we're going to go ahead with our next speaker, Nancy and Jeff Coker. Nancy and Jeff built a Strawbale house and casita on 5.5 acres just east of Vail, Arizona in Pima County. The vision statement, stolen from Patagonia. Jeff, everything here is going to be recorded, by the way, was and is as follows. They built the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, inspire and implement solutions for future environmental sustainability. And after almost 4 years, their dream has become a reality. They will be discussing the highs and lows of building sustainability with a builder. Please welcome Jeff and Nancy Coker.
All right, so here we go. Just a little bit of background. We started on our sustainable journey around 2001 when we started getting into gardening and healthy eating and all those kinds of things. And we started reading Mother Earth News. And in Mother Earth News, we saw a lot of different natural building methods. And we considered them all, but we were drawn to the look of Strawbale and really liked that method. And when I was growing up in Ontario, Canada, I was determined to build a log home because a log home just seemed appropriate. But then I moved to the Southwest and log just wasn't going to cut it. So Strawbale was the one we settled on. I took a sustainable building class at a local community college when we lived in California. And I learned about different materials and methods. And then we also took a passive solar design course in Tucson. We visited Tucson, and it was with Dan Dorsey through the Sonoran Permaculture Guild. And then we toured some Strawbale houses in Tucson and really confirmed that we wanted the Strawbale method of building. When we decided to move to Tucson, we were excited that there was a Strawbale community here already. And we also made the decision when it came time to build, though, that without any building experience and working full-time jobs, we just didn't feel for us that we would be able to build the home ourselves in a reasonable time frame. But we certainly wanted to contribute to it too, which is what we did.
And I'll take the blame for that. Nancy knows that if I had tried to build it ourselves, we would still be like 20 years in the future and not have it finished. So when we moved to Tucson in 2012, Nancy took on the role of trying to find a suitable piece of property. She searched high and low around the Tucson area. We found a piece, 5.5 acres, just east of Vail, just east of the Gabe Zimmerman Trailhead, if you're familiar. Border state trust land. We then assumed that we would be able to find somebody to help us design and build this. The Dan Dorsey got us in contact with Ray Clemens at Natural Building Works. He was a young and upcoming architect. We took about over 2 years of planning with him. He brought in the architectural viewpoint. We brought in the more practical side of it. If we'd have designed it, it'd probably be just a square box, but Ray brought in he pushed us and we pushed him back, and we came up with a beautiful product. So our homestead, we call it a homestead. It's 3 buildings. We've got the 1,600-foot square house. We have about a 400-square-foot casita that are both Strawbale with one rammed earth wall in the casita. And then we have a regular 600-square-foot garage that is regular frame. We didn't feel like we needed to do Strawbale on that because there really wasn't any need for the additional cost. That's you.
So after we worked with Ray to have this great plan, then we needed to find a builder. So that took a little time. It wasn't, they weren't lining up at our door. We interviewed quite a few, called quite a few. We looked online through sustainable building lists that were in Pima County, and also through word of mouth. People would say, hey, I worked on this project and so and so. So, one builder gave us a high quote, didn't even seem interested. They really weren't interested. Another builder with Strawbale experience tried to discourage us building with Strawbale and didn't even visit our site to see if it would work. Another one with Strawbale experience couldn't do big jobs anymore, or he was just doing remodeling. And there was a boom in Tucson, and I believe it was in the 80s for Strawbale. So a lot of the Strawbale people that were capable were older, and they just didn't want to take on a big project. Or like another one we talked to, they weren't licensed to do such a big job because we had, the 2 Strawbale buildings. So we finally found Hayes Construction on a sustainable building list online, and they didn't have any Strawbale experience, but they were willing to learn. They were excited for the challenge, and they were also willing to let us contribute to the project and use our own sweat equity. And during the Strawbale actual building process, we had friends help us with the Strawbale part. And so we got to experience that sense of community that comes with it, with building Strawbale. So that was nice. So they really let us do a lot of work on the project, which was great. And so we worked with them. So we'd already talked to our architect on and off for a couple of years. And then this was another year. We met with the builder and the architect, a lot of meetings at a coffee house in Tucson. And we finally were ready to start building. And Pima County is a fairly straightforward, progressive, place for Strawbale. And permitting was fairly smooth for us in Pima County. So that was a good thing.
So now you kind of know our background. We'll talk about the highs and lows of building, not yourself, but using a builder or general contractor. First thing we'll cover is communicating with the builder and the subs. You really want to choose somebody you're comfortable with. We met, like Nancy said, with several builders, but when we met with Hayes, we both came away from it saying these people are honest, they're positive, and this is who we want to work with. So you want to be able to trust them. If you're working full time like we were, we couldn't be on site all the time. I work 7 on 7 off. So when I was off, I was out there every day, sweeping up, helping clean, being their gopher, whatever, putting in that sweat equity. But when I wasn't there for a week at a time, you got to trust them to do the right thing. You want to make sure you read the contract real carefully. We had no building experience. All the houses we've owned and lived in have been pre-built. So we had never been in that process before. So really ask deep questions and make sure nothing is left on the table. You want to reach out to other homeowners. So 2 things here. 1, reach out to other homeowners that the builders have built for. Ask them questions. Were they happy, positives, pros and cons? But also reach out to other home builders like we're doing here today. Ask other people that have built a Strawbale house or whatever. What do you like? What do you don't like? What have been some issues? Everybody tends to talk about all the positive stuff, but there's a lot of negative stuff that goes on too. And I'll talk about that later in the presentation. But if we'd have known all the negative stuff early on, it would have lowered our anxiety a lot. And don't assume your builders and subs have the same attention to detail and ethics as you. My background, if you make a mistake, you own up to it, you take responsibility, you come up with a fix, and then you execute that fix. There's a lot of subs and a lot of people out there that don't do that. I come back from a week at work and be like, well, what about this? What about this? How did this happen? They're like, I don't know, but you have to be ready for that, but also see who you're working with and make sure you can trust them again. Get everybody on the same page. Go on a field trip. We didn't do this and we wish we had. Get your subs and your builders, go on a field trip to a house that you're going to build of the same type and figure out, can they do it? Do they want to do it? Do you want to do it? Ask that homeowner again, what's good and what's bad. You might, Nancy wanted to build a log house. It didn't work for us here, but that's one of the things that you could think about. You can't be afraid to say stop. It's your dream. If you have a sub and they're not doing a good job, or you have some questions, just say stop. We have a wood plank ceiling, for example. And we thought that our inside, if you have a Strawbale house, you have about 1 inch of plaster on the inside of that wall. We thought that the planks didn't have to be the same length because it would be covered up by that inch of plaster. Because of our vault ceiling, you could see that it's like a tooth. The plaster guys were in there getting ready to put the J metal on, and I said, stop. And the contractor looked at me, and the plaster guys looked at me. They're like, we're here. We drove an hour to get here. I'm like, yes, but you have to do the foundation. You have to do the basic step first, fix the ceiling, and then we can work on the walls. Did it cost us a 2-week delay? Yes, but the end product was much better. So don't be afraid to say stop. It's your house. It's your dream, and you're the one in control of it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I have no building experience. I fly helicopters for a living. So, but I'm the common sense in the room. Hey, is that pipe really supposed to be that close to the wall? You do know these walls are 16 inches thick, right? Oh, maybe we need to move it back. Yeah, read the plans. But again, you're the common sense sometimes that they just don't see the obvious because they're doing it all the time. And if you're building sustainably, it's different. It's different than normal construction. So don't be afraid to ask questions and say stop. You can't preempt or predict every issue. Things are going to arise. If you live out here in Portal or in Rodeo, you might not be able to get the supplies right away, but you have to adapt and you have to be prepared for that. Set a reasonable timeline, but be prepared for changes. We had a lot of issues with subs. Ours was not an easy project. It wasn't something they were used to. So they would always put us back on the back burner. They'd go to the easy jobs, the jobs that might pay more, the government jobs they have a deadline for, but be prepared for timeline changes. Importance of setting and maintaining expectations. Manage your expectations. Natural building perfection comes with increased cost, skill, and time. My experience, our experience was with standard build houses. Square corners, walls are plumb, everything looks perfect. You have molding that covers anything that imperfections. Our house does not have baseboards. The walls come straight down to the concrete floors. Getting contractors to understand that, no, there are going to be no cover-ups. There's no molding. Everything has to be clean, but that's not what they're used to. But if you want perfection in natural building, you can get it, but it's going to cost a lot of extra money. It's going to cost a lot of extra time, and it takes a lot of extra skill. Kind of dovetailing this, our expectations are a little high, and that caused a lot of stress. But if you let go of achieving perfection the first time, even after hours of planning, some things are just going to need adjusting. Got a couple notes here I want to talk about specifically. You got to have a good support team. There were times when I was on the edge of the wall, like I'm just driving myself nuts. I'm not sleeping. I'm worried about everything. But our architect, Gurudas Bach, who was our plaster guy, or one of our earthen plasters, specifically Natasha at Originate in Tucson, which is a great building material resource. I'd call him on the phone, I'd email him, we'd go and we'd talk, and they'd talk me off. Gurudas, I was stressed about one time about some wall being off on the Strawbale, and he's like, Jeff, I would not come out here and spend my time if I didn't think this was going to be a beautiful project. When you're building sustainably in natural building, there's going to be curves, and all that curve adds value to your house and makes it special and unique. And that's why he's here working on it. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me now. And it kind of brought me down, and, it was good. It's going to take longer than you think. and it's going to cost more than you think it's going to cost. It's good to have a budget, but always plan a little bit. We call our property Rock Hill, and we call it Rock Hill for a reason. We have a lot of rock, and our budget for excavation got blown out of the window in the first week. We were supposed to have the 1,500-pound hammer there for a week, and it was there for a month. So just be prepared. Again, we talked about expectations. Be prepared for the unexpected.
Sourcing sustainable materials and products. Stay true to your beliefs. If you want non-toxic products, then they are out there and you can find them. But traditional builders are unfamiliar with these products, and they just fall back on their own experience. Just because they say, no, you can't do it. Like we had a concrete person who said, he couldn't use a non-toxic product to seal our concrete. So we did it ourselves and we found the product. Just don't take no for an answer if that's really important to you. Do your own research. You'll save money, frustration. You trust them, but verify on your own and do the research. We had an example, and just know the products, read the labels, read the packages. How is it supposed to be applied? If you're assuming, like I did at the beginning, that the builders know all this, well, then you know what assuming does. We had a lime plaster that had, of course, a temperature range. It couldn't be applied if it was too hot. Well, it's too hot around Tucson for at least 6 months. So they didn't have the schedule. They had to go on to other projects, and we had been delayed a little bit by then. And we're like, well, now we can't do it. We can't do it for 6 months. And then that was a major part of the build, was the outside lime plaster. So that had to be delayed 6 months, which then delayed whatever was supposed to come next. So they hadn't really read the specs on the bag and really taken it seriously as to the planning and the timing of the planning for when to do it. And just knowing people in the community, like we mentioned before, Originate Natural Building, we would go down there, and Natasha, like we would say, the builder doesn't think they can find something non-toxic for this. And she would go over to a shelf and pull a product off and goes, no, you can use this. Okay. And then we would suggest they use it. Sometimes whoever the sub was would. And like I said, with the concrete, they wouldn't do it because they weren't familiar with it. So just having people around that know about these products was a great resource.
So not to be all negative, we're going to talk about some pros about using Builder. They have their list of subcontractors. So we signed our contract to start building on March 13th of 2020. Everybody know what happened in March of 2020, right? It's COVID hit. So, and everybody knows, at least in Tucson, shortly thereafter, the building boom took off. So if we had not had a builder, I don't think I could have had any plaster guy would have called me back if I said, hey, can you come out and give me a bid on doing a plaster on a Strawbale house? Like it would have been radio silence. So having that build, having Tom and Andrew at Hayes, they had their list of subs, and we had issues with their subs, but in the end, they would come out and it was a good thing. They also have basic construction knowledge. I know Jake is an IT guy, and he learned as he went. He did the remodel in his basement. I built like a Pinewood Derby car in Boy Scouts. So not having the construction knowledge, it's good. Tom didn't have any Strawbale experience, but he bought the Strawbale book. He read up on it, so he knew how to talk to the subs that were going to do the plaster work. And then, for example, we brought all our lumber down. We bought it sustainably. It came down its own semi from Oregon. Ironically, we paid a premium before COVID, but if we'd have bought that same piece of plywood that I paid premium for, it was going for 3 times as much at Home Depot when we actually needed it. But anyways, it was delivered on a semi. We have a very steep driveway, goes across the wash, steep turn. They couldn't get the semi up to the house to deliver the lumber. It had to be delivered, offloaded about a quarter mile from the site. Tom, our contractor, said he lost a couple nights sleep on how he was going to get the lumber up to the house. He ended up getting an extended forklift. He'd load it up, drive down the road. He could lift it above all the fences and gates, get it around the corner. That's a type of knowledge that I wouldn't have, but he has. And you can lean on your community if you're building yourself, because other people have had to do it also. And then they can help with the cost estimates. Didn't get it quite right on the excavation side of the house, but he got it right on a lot of the other stuff that we would never have any idea of how much it was going to cost, but they did it for us. So now we kind of talked the pros and the cons. We'll talk about our house specifically. So we talked about a 1,600 square foot Strawbale house, totally passive, solar oriented, 10 degrees off of center, east to west. We've got 40 foot of windows on the south wall. We want to maintain the straight shade on those windows. It's nice in the wintertime, but in the summertime, Ray designed the 360 square foot porch cover, and then the shade structures on either side, made out of steel, but they're angled with a 30-degree angle so that no sun hits the side of our house from the end of March to the end of October, keeping it nice and cool. Our windows obviously are all highest efficiency, but they're not going to block out all that sun. It's also a passive house to the max extent possible. So we didn't use trying to keep it as non-toxic as possible. No red list items in the house except for very specific tactical uses and very thoughtful. We use a product 495 high efficiency building materials. So no caulk. We use tape to tape and seal off our house like Jake talked about. If you have a passive house with no drafts, it keeps the rodents out, it keeps the draft out, and helps you regulate the temperature a lot better.
So we did reuse materials. These windows here were from a home in San Francisco. They're antique windows, and we got them at Originate Building Supply. And then I cleaned them up and refinished them, and we used them in a very unique way. So that in that room where I'm working at a laptop, I can see the view. You can see the reflection of it. I get to see out the big windows. So Ray, our architect, designed that idea to have those windows, which was wonderful. We also used leftover wood for small vanities that we needed. We repurposed I guess it was like a bedroom dresser, made it into a bathroom vanity. And the casita kitchen was all leftover wood too. So we use that. We don't have a picture of that on here, but and then also the wall covering. So we had the lime plaster, and then the green wall in here is American clay. And then we also used a non-toxic paint on all the drywall walls. And I did all the painting myself.
On the picture on the right, you can see our wood planks. It's sustainable lumber as close as we could get to home. It's all sustainably harvested in Flagstaff ponderosa pine from AP Sawmill up there. And then, water collection, rainwater heads with Awareness Ranch, 5,000 gallons. You can see our courtyard there on the right slide with our 3 buildings, all connected with a wet system. 2 inches of rain, we get about 4,000 gallons of water. Yep. And right now we have a well, but we're using rainwater for everything we use right now for all the water usage. And we have gray water planned in the future. This is our casita. You can see our rammed earth wall. That is kind of an art piece there. And the picture on the right, that's why we built our house. It's for views like that. Any questions? Cool. You guys all want to go to lunch, so that's good. Go ahead, sir. So Ray, our architect, his passion is rammed earth. And so we wanted to bring in, talking to him for 2.5 years, we're like, hey, let's do this. And this is in our courtyard, so it's a piece of art. And that was actually the first wall that went up. We built it in August. It was like 110 degrees. It was miserable. But so yeah. Go ahead in the back. We did. We actually got the sand down in the wash, trucked it up, and then yeah, we had to bring in clay because we live on a rock, so we don't have any clay. But otherwise, everything was built. We tried to keep everything on. I have piles of rock we're going to build gabions and stuff with. I didn't let them take any product off of our property because we plan to reuse everything on our property to the max extent possible. And we don't have solar right now, but that is phase 2. We're trying to cash flow everything. So we'll save up and then we'll see what we use for the first year. We've only been in the house since December 16th of last year. So we'll see what we use for the first year and then we'll build our solar system. Don't overbuild or underbuild. Directly from the rainwater. We have a basic filtration system, but I mean, we're hikers, so we're used to, we don't have to over purify our water. Yeah, it's a metal roof, and it's a wet system, so everything stays, it's always in there. There's one other question. Go for it. So we have not used we didn't use the heater at all this winter. We have mini splits, but we haven't used them at all. Right now, a temperature sits at about 75 degrees when I get up or when we go to bed at night. And if we leave the windows open or if I get up first thing in the morning and open, it'll get down to about 70 and that's where it stays. It doesn't go up or above. So we're interested to see how long we're going to go. We're trying to at least go to the end of May before we use the air conditioner, at least in the bedroom. But yeah, it's been good so far. We're at 3,700 feet. So we cash flowed it. So we saved up, we've been thinking about it for a long time. Natural building, the labor is where the cost is. And, ours is definitely a lot more expensive than what everybody's throwing out there. And, we were lucky enough we saved for years to make that happen. But you can save a lot of money if you do it yourself. But if you pay for the labor, it's going to be more expensive. But we didn't look out to, we cash flowed it, so we didn't have to get a mortgage through any type of lender or anything like that. Last question in the back. Funny story. We wanted to get them from Tohono farm or San Xavier, the farm there. And I went out to look for them and they were okay. And then as I was driving home, I looked back and there's a big column of smoke. So they all went up and as local as we could get for bales of straw, they burned. So we ended up getting it just at the feed store there off Sarita Road. Last question. It is a standing seam roof. Our plant, so nothing penetrates our roof. All of our pipes go out through the above the straw bale, above the box beam, or through the box beam, and so hopefully the solar panels will just clamp to the top. Our metal roof we got from a company in Phoenix, but we've been happy with it so far. There's some noise issues we're dealing with, but that has to do with the space in between and things like that we just weren't aware of. And that's a great example of you can't plan for everything. Some things are just going to happen and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I will props to Jonathan and Ashley, because I got to watching their videos a couple of years ago and was kind of at a place where I was expecting perfection. It's got to be right the first time. And they really kind of brought it back of like, you can experiment. It's okay to fail the first time. You just get back up and try it again with some other way. So props to them. Appreciate their inspiration. Okay, thanks. And we'll be around, so just grab us.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we break for lunch, a couple more raffle tickets. Everybody pull your tickets out.